Entitled Dad demands I relocate my home office or stop working from home entirely. This happened earlier today. A bit of backstory, my husband and I both work from home with fully remote jobs. We have a 3-bedroom house, one room is our bedroom, one room is my husband's office, and the other room is my office. Other than that, we have a couple of bathrooms, a living room, and a kitchen, none of which I care to turn into an office. This will be relevant later. Every day, starting at about 3:30, a gaggle of children play in the street in front of my house. They live on either end of the street, none of them reside in any of the houses they play in front of. Multiple times I've asked them to keep it down or play elsewhere, as they're really loud and distracting. They literally just scream at the top of their lungs sometimes. I don't ask them to move or keep it down every day, just days where they're extra loud. I've also had to ask them on multiple occasions to get out of my yard. I never cuss or berate them, I simply ask them to keep it down in a polite manner. After all, they're just kids. So today I called out the window asking them to keep it down. They moved closer to my house and got even louder. Once again I asked them to keep it down, and this entitled dad came waddling over, and that's where our story starts. Entitled dad comes over and rings our doorbell, then proceeds to beat on my door. This isn't the first time he's come to justify his kid's behavior. I refuse to answer the door and speak to him over our doorbell camera. He says, "Is there a problem?" I say, "Yes, sir, I continually have to ask your children to keep it down. We work from home and it's incredibly distracting. Can they play in front of your house instead of mine?" "I work from home too." "Okay, great, so they can play in front of your house, so you have to listen to them?" "Don't you ever speak to my children again, or it will be the last thing you do." "Okay, I need you to get off my property right now or I'm calling the cops." "You'd better not speak to my children again, you'll regret it." "I wouldn't have to if they played in front of your house, so you have to listen to them, not me." Once again, we work from home, it's incredibly distracting when they're screaming at the top of their lungs. "You're now trespassing on my property and I've asked you to leave already. Do I need to call the cops?" "Why don't you go into your office to work there instead? They won't bother you if you aren't here." "We're both 100% remote, we don't have an office we can go into." "Then you should move your office to the back of your house." "Can't do that either, my husband's office is in the back room. This is the only option for my office. Please leave now or I'm calling the cops, I won't warn you again." We live in a relatively narrow 2-story house. There isn't really anywhere further from the road aside from one room my husband uses as his office. We go back and forth with him threatening that if I speak to his kids again it will be the last thing I do. I assume his little angel children exaggerated their story when they told him I asked them to keep it down or move it elsewhere. I demanded he leave my property or I'm calling the cops. He then went and stood on the sidewalk, flipping me off and continuing his threats. Like, who the frick do you think you are demanding I rearrange my house or leave my house to work? When the solution is you parent your kids and teach them to be respectful of people's property and stay out of my yard and keep it down. Not to mention we have a neighborhood park just down the street. Way safer than playing in the middle of the street or strangers' yards. Anyhow, just needed to get all of that off my chest and thought you kind folks might enjoy my tale. Okay, I'm posting after the fact. Stop telling me to build a fence. I'm tired of telling you all that my HOA rules prohibit that. Also, fences aren't cheap. In addition, for those in the back that seem to think I'm screaming at random kids, reread this part. I don't ask them to move or keep it down every day, just days where they're extra loud. My HOA rules are fuzzy, so I'm not sure what good they'll do, since nuisances on lots or in dwellings is what it explicitly says. Our HOA is run by a management company. I've emailed them to inquire about what they can do here. I expect I'll hear back from them in a few days to a week, if ever. They aren't known for being speedy, unless you forget to mail in your dues check. Huh! However, with the specific terminology in the CCRs, I'm not sure what to expect. For now, we've settled on a better pair of noise-cancelling headphones. My existing ones were too heavy and it caused neck issues and migraines if they were worn for extended periods of time, so I don't wear them often. Having opted for some lighter weight ones, that should be better and cause less issues. We're on the fence about getting sprinklers due to not wanting to spray the various delivery people and the 3-legged elderly dog that occasionally rests on our grass mid-walk. The doggo and the owner are super sweet and even asked if we were okay with the doggo resting here on occasion. Of course we were. We also don't plan to be here long enough to justify the expense of either a remote-activated sprinkler system or a mosquito, which is over $800 after taxes. In addition, they can annoy pets as well from what I briefly read. I don't want to antagonize my own pets or any other neighboring ones. Disappointing, I know, but my goal isn't to cause more issues for myself, so it just seems like the best move. I'm not an unreasonable person, I'm willing to make adjustments to make less of an issue, but the question that still remains is, why can't they play in front of their own houses or down the street in the park? It's easily within walking distance and it doesn't require them to cross any major roads. It's inside the neighborhood instead of in front of some random stranger's house and in their yard. I guess I'll never know. My husband will also be dealing with this man moving forward in the hopes of a different person not triggering the same response from entitled dad. However, as far as not speaking to his kids, a clear solution here would be to tell your kids to stay off my lawn and off my property. Wouldn't speak to them if they weren't in my bubble, but I'm the adult here and I can only control my actions and reactions. Moving forward, I'll let the authorities deal with this so I have a paper trail. Our city has a specific unit for such matters, so they can deal with it moving forward. After all, that's part of why we pay taxes. So am I being a jerk? Well, I was about to say this is more low stakes than some of the other stories we do here on the channel, given that it essentially comes down to just a long-running neighborly dispute, but now I've reread it. Your neighbor did actually threaten you, and it seems like you might have the capacity to record such things with your door cam, so maybe do that? As for who we pin the villain badge on for this one, up until Daddy started slinging actual threats of harm around, I would have probably labeled this one under who cares. But he just had to go and make himself jerk king of the neighborhood. This feels like one of those things that your HOA should theoretically deal with, in theory. But they might be more busy doing what all HOAs do and finding old ladies for leaving their laundry on the line for half a day too long instead of facing up to actual disturbances in the area. You could almost certainly at least call the cops on the children for trespassing if they do it again, and you get sick of trying not to rock the boat. Once Dad starts getting some actual fines and tickets, that might motivate him to control his kids and their friends. Who knows? Is an in-law still a parent? The story of, I know the owner. So a few weeks ago, me and a friend went to a, yay, quarantine is lifted, happy hour together. She apologized, but said she has to invite her mother-in-law because the woman, who we'll call EP, had wanted to go to the same restaurant the same day and might have shown up anyway. Anyway, we were there for maybe 15 minutes and got our drinks and a basket of bread and placed our orders for appetizers. Seated indoors, there was nice AC. In comes EP. We see her, and my friend, let's call her Emily, waves at her. EP waves back but is still at the hostess stand for a good 10 minutes? A long time when you're sitting there trying to wonder what she's doing. We have a table. The restaurant was, for sure, busy as heck and had a wait on tables. The poor hostess looked disgruntled. Finally, EP comes over and sits down. I asked for a patio table. I told her I know the owner. They always take care of me. We were just uncomfortable because we hadn't wanted one or to go outside at all. But she didn't ask us, she just went for it. I honestly knew this was going to get worse. We both tried to stop her. She's a bulldozer, and her age gave her some sort of confidence and authority, I guess because she said more than once, I know what I'm doing, just watch. 10 or 15 minutes later, she's twisting around and making a show of how she's looking for someone. She says, I always sit at the bar here, I never pay for my drinks, they always buy my drinks for me. I think that's the owner right there with his friends. She pointed to a group of people standing and laughing. His name is John, I think. The waiter comes over. EP complains that we still haven't been reset. Waiter says he'll check on it and she says, I know the owner. I want a table over by them now. Just pull some chairs. The waiter tried to explain they're only allowed to seat every other table and there weren't any free ones available. She looks indignant and says, I'm going to go over there and ask him myself. Waiter leaves. She starts complaining to us about something or other. Emily had warned me that EP is a bit much. She waves again at a passing waiter that isn't even our guy. He comes over. Is that the owner over there? Yes, that's him. What's his name again? It's Mark. So she jumps up and runs over there and pretends like she knows him with her, oh my god, Mark! I haven't seen you in forever. It's so good to see you. She didn't even know his name. We were forced by her to move to a table next to his group where he didn't once speak to her, but she kept twisting to make eyes at him. Even bought him a shot. He didn't accept it. The bill for the end of the night was $370. Both Emily and EP ordered food to go for their husbands. I had the waiter split my check off from theirs. EP insisted that she pay for the rest without Emily pitching in. Emily was uncomfortable, but got the tip instead. Sounds good, right? Like a generous ending. Nope. Emily told me a week later that EP emailed the restaurant and threw a fit, saying the bill was wrong and how dare they mischarge her, and it was so unprofessional, and how the three of us couldn't have racked up that much. We were there for 4 hours and they both ordered premium stuff from the non-happy hour menu. It was 100% accurate. She's a fairly typical middle-aged woman who hangs out at bars alone. I asked Emily about EP's marriage and money situation. She apparently has a very free reign of spending. He makes all the money, but she has the big credit line because of something or other. I don't remember the story fully. She's money entitled anyway. I've worked the bar at a lot of higher-end places and lounges and spent quite a bit of time working VIP areas of casinos. This is how entitled upper middle class always acts. I saw her house before I ever met her. It was unnecessarily nice. No family pictures anywhere though. Why didn't I say anything? When you don't know someone and you're meeting them for the first time, it's not the time to be a jerk. You sit back and observe and make conclusions about the person. If I went around strong-handing everyone because I made first impression assumptions, I'd be no better socially. And poor Emily has to play nice because it's her mother-in-law. She didn't want her there either, but apparently EP invited her to that same place earlier, and she made up some excuse she couldn't go. She was afraid EP would show up and see us, so she invited her to avoid the weirdness. I'm so embarrassed I never want to go anywhere with her again. I think it's more of a power trip for her than money saving. She likes to buy friends. I think she just wanted to feel in charge or some twisted thing I don't know. Obviously, she had no intention of actually paying in the end since she disputed it. So, am I wrong, or is EP the worst kind of entitled jerk? As all former hospitality workers would be, I think the narrator would be completely mortified to be in any situation with service people with this truly awful and inconsiderate woman in tow. I've been to restaurants and uncomfortably sat while members of my table clicked their fingers at waiters and said rude things about the staff, and those were uncomfortable enough. But I don't think I could physically bear to be in the presence of this in-law from hell. That would be the narrator messaging a friend to make up an emergency call to get him the heck out of there, and leaving enough of a tip to alleviate my guilt. Good luck, poor friend who I just left at the table with their horrible in-law. I can't imagine being apparently that well off and still just going to all that trouble to avoid paying for any of these meals. Or maybe that's where all their savings come from all the time, who can say? Perhaps they eat out several times a week and complain their way out of the bill half the time. Although I can't imagine they wouldn't get barred from all their local eateries this way. Anywho, hands down a jerk. All men and women like this who us waiters have ever served can go and get effed. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my ex-husband's girlfriend a part of the inheritance? I, a 58-year-old female, was married to a man for 16 years and we had a son. After my son was killed by a drunk driver, we couldn't support each other. We divorced 6 years ago, I moved to a different state and we haven't spoken since then. About a month ago, I was contacted by the executor of his will and informed of his death. His latest will was written about a year ago. When I went, I was informed that he left me everything, except for $10,000 that he had left to his girlfriend. They were together for 2 years and lived in the same house. Now his girlfriend is demanding that I surrender all of the inheritance to her. She says that I wasn't the one that was there for him while he was drowning in his grief, and that I moved on while he was still feeling guilt over the death of our son. I've refused so far, but I still feel a bit guilty since I'm planning to sell the house, our marital house. I couldn't bear to stay in it after our son's death. So she'll have to look for housing. She can't afford to, she doesn't have a job. Also, I make a good living and own a house outright, inherited from my parents. So, am I the jerk? I've received a lot of responses and this seems like a frequent question. I've offered her to stay at the house free of charge for the next 6 months before I put it on the market. Also, I've offered her the choice of whatever she wants to take from my ex's personal effects, and house furniture that she wants to take. That and the continued use of his car. This is not a clear-cut jerk story by any means, and we're once again rather limited on perspective. But ultimately I'd say you're not a jerk. Even if you and your husband were unable to be and talk together, he clearly wanted you provided for after he passed away and had considered what to leave his girlfriend, as it specified an amount in the will. So while I can in a sense understand her frustration at her life being uprooted, all is more or less as it should be. The deceased ex-husband and his new partner hadn't been together long, and while we don't have much info there, he would have had every chance to amend his will if he felt the need, and ultimately the decision was up to him. Good on the author for at least throwing the girlfriend a bone and giving her some time to sort things out, and something extra in the form of a car to make her life a little easier. Today I messed up by telling hundreds of customers I was looking for love. I always hate on the Today I Messed Up posts because they so rarely happen today. But then I realized I have a great one that happened years ago, so I get to be that guy now. Anyway, I used to work for Safeway. For those who may not know, it's a massive supermarket and grocery chain on the US West Coast. Being in Northern California, we have a robust and amazing Mexican population. Great people, the lot of them. Also, being in California, it can get pretty hot in the 104 to 108 Fahrenheit range at the peak of summer. Now, I'm a mayonnaise-white, ranch-dripping, polo-wearing cracker. I had this one Mexican coworker named Jesus. Great dude, funny, obsessed with women, and loved to mess with me, but not all the time. Usually, he was cool. I was lower management and had a lot of Spanish-speaking customers and a lot of Spanish-speaking staff. I wanted to learn some Spanish and was picking up job-related terms here and there. Bolsa, ayuda, Javes, and such. It allowed me to try and converse with my customers and staff better and learn along the way. Everyone wins. So this one extremely hot day, I asked Jesus how to say I was really hot to customers. Bullcrap weather talk, good stuff for customer service. Jesus tells me that you say, "Yo soy muy caliente." So, okay, we're at work. I took him at his word and used it all day with my Spanish-speaking customers. So people are acting pretty weird as they're coming through my line for much of the day. And eventually this woman comes through and like so many before her, I say, "Hola, su tarjeta? ¿Cómo está? Can I have your club card? How are you? Etc." And she smiles, "Bien, ¿y tú? Good, and you?" Now, this is the 100th or so customer I've had this conversation with that day. But this woman, this angel of a woman, I say, "Yo soy muy caliente," while sort of puffing my collar and fanning my face with my hand. She starts laughing so hard that she almost can't talk, and she asks me, in English, "Do you know what that means?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it means I'm really hot," as I'm handing her her receipt. She leans in, real close, grabs her receipt and whispers, "It means I'm very randy," and then grabs her bag and walks off. I turn bright red and then turn around and Jesus is in the check stand behind me, laughing his butt off, crying tears and leaning on his register. Turns out he'd been sitting there all day having the time of his gosh darn life, watching me tell all of our customers how down to clown that I was. I gave up on my Spanish for the rest of the day. In short, my coworker told me how to say I'm hot in Spanish, but what he actually told me meant I am very much turned on. So I spent the day telling customers I was thinking about doing the deed. Good lord, audience, you have no idea what a shortage of clear and well-known words for lascivious, libidinous, and desiring there are without alerting the censors to get our video kicked off the algorithm. Hopefully our meaning was clear here. Jesus, Jesus, you did not behave like your namesake in this story. That said, you aren't a jerk, this is just absolutely hilarious. Bold move to try that on one of your very nice-sounding, well-meaning managers, though. If nothing else, it seems to have amused at least one customer who immediately worked out what was going on. There's also a lot of feedback in the comments. Apparently, if the author is as pasty white as he claims, Spanish-speaking Americans are pretty good at instantly realizing that us gringos are more likely to be failing linguistically than purposefully saying things that could get us arrested. And thank goodness for that. Oh, and the narrator has made a very similar mistake in his second language and told a woman that she had a really attractive dog instead of a very cute dog. Cringe. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.